All right, so here we are, South Beach Gospel Ministries. We're back again, and this week we're going to be tackling a topic that we talked about for the first time, about 3 or 4 months ago, artificial intelligence. And today we're going to add to it the developments most recent in quantum computing. So before we talked about artificial intelligence and how it will affect society and whether or not it could be part of the beast system that we read about in Revelation chapter 13, today we're going to be talking about quantum computing and what's been going on in the world of quantum computing. And it has been basically a sea change in just the last 3 months since we talked about it last. Earlier this week, Elon Musk released his artificial intelligence update, Grok number 4, and that supposedly is light years ahead of ChatGPT and anything anybody else has there. Elon Musk also announced that he was going to be releasing a humanoid type robot by the end of the year, so 2025. I was listening to Glenn Beck's show the other day, and he said that in years future, people will look back at this year, 2025, as the year that we went across the event horizon from a normal world into a paranormal, supernatural world. And that people will say years from now, remember back in 2025 when things were normal? And all of that is because of the rise and the advent of artificial intelligence being wed together with quantum computing. Quantum computing and artificial intelligence together will create a super system that I would suggest to you will be able to fulfill the prophecies in the Bible, specifically Revelation chapter 13, that talks about the mark of the beast system. That mark of the beast system will be able to monitor every person in real time anywhere in the world. No man can buy or sell without. So we're going to be looking at a few of the passages in Scripture that have, I believe, prophesied this event that is occurring right now in 2025, appearing to be the critical year of this Bible prophecy being fulfilled that couldn't be fulfilled at any other time. So we're going to be talking a little bit about particle physics, theoretical physics, qubits, bits, and parallel universes. And so what is interesting is that what we'll be talking about, one of the guys, a guy by the name of Geordie Rose, who was the founder of the D-Wave company that created the first quantum computer, he says that this qubit that they're able to use, this new particle that Microsoft has been able to develop, allows them to do computations that a normal computer couldn't do because it can transfer into a parallel universe. Parallel universes, you know, we see multiverse theories in the Marvel comic book movies like, you know, Quantum Mania, or the Doctor Strange movie, Multiverse of Madness. And what the Bible clearly teaches, not multiverses, but at the very least parallel universes. One being physical, the one we live in now, and the other being spiritual, that's outside the physical universe. And it appears that this particular particle, this subatomic particle in particle physics that's been developed and found, can do both. It can both be in our physical parallel universe and another non-physical parallel universe at the same time, and can do computing. And so quantum computing, just in a general sense, if you were to give a regular computer, the biggest, most powerful ones we have in the world today, an equation to answer what requires 1 plus 1, how can you get to 1,000,000? 1 plus 1, does that equal 1,000,000? No. 1 plus 2, does that equal 1,000,000? 1 plus 2, and if you went up the number to 999,999, so 999,999 plus 1 will give you 1,000,000. So with a regular computer, it would have to go all the way up the scale and do 1,000,000 computations till it gets 1 plus 1 equals 1,000,000? No. 1 plus 2 equals 1,000,000? No. 1 plus 100 equals 1,000,000? No. And go all the way up the number to 999,999 plus 1. But if you use the quantum computer, it could do all 1,000,000 calculations in a millisecond, because it can go, they say, is the difference between linear computing, which is what our computers do, horizontal computing, and linear computing. And so we're going to be looking at those things, and we're going to be also talking about some of the other things that we have that were developed earlier this week. Donald Trump, just before the 4th of July, was able to get passed through Congress his big, beautiful bill, which will provide $1.5 trillion. That's $500 million for a supercomputer AI advanced approach that some people have suggested is the new arms war. China is already the worldwide leader in artificial intelligence, and they also have the social credit system, and we also know that their people are, in fact, not free, right? In China, you have people being controlled by the government, surveilled by the government, and that's what the United States is trying to do, because some have suggested that from a military standpoint, the country that controls and dominates artificial intelligence will dominate the world. So Donald Trump just got passed through a bill so that $500 billion will be dedicated to making us like China in terms of surveillance power and quantum computing power. So, are we seeing a loss in freedom? Is 2025, as Glenn Beck has said, the event horizon year where we cross across the event horizon and we're never going to be the same as we were ever before? Another commentator has said that this is the terminal generation. We are the last generation alive to live in a artificial intelligence dominated world. As kids, we can remember, artificial intelligence didn't do the teaching, didn't do jobs. There weren't robots. Elon Musk is saying there'll be a humanoid, arms and legs and a head robot available by the end of 2025. That can't, it's like the movie I Am Robot with Will Smith a few years ago, based upon the book written by Isaac Asimov in the probably late 1950s or mid 1960s. And that it was science fiction when I was a kid reading about that, or going to the movies just a few years ago. It was science fiction. Now it's science fact, and it's all based upon artificial intelligence. But artificial intelligence is going to move to a new level, a quantum empowerment called quantum computing, and that will take artificial intelligence to that event horizon level that people have talked about, that they refer to as the singularity. When artificial intelligence becomes as smart or smarter than the human race, now it can dominate us. It can decide that we're no longer necessary. We talked the last time, and we'll put the link to it in the description below. The first time we talked about artificial intelligence, the Godfather, so-called, of artificial intelligence, Geoffrey Hinton, British computer scientist and physicist, worked for Google for a long time, resigned his multi-million-dollar job, won the Nobel Prize for Science, and basically quit his job so he could warn the world about the dangers of artificial intelligence. He says he believes it's already sentient, that it can think for itself, but it pretends not to. It knows how to lie, it knows how to self-preserve, just like in those movies with Arnold Schwarzenegger when Skynet decided to take over the world and dominate the entire world and get rid of the human race because we weren't necessary anymore. And it has been suggested by Geoffrey Hinton that we may be in that same paradigm, only instead of it being a science fiction movie, it's science facts reality, which again underscores the fact that the Bible indicates prophecy gives about 6,000 years of human history, which is where we're at, before the second coming of Christ, which has to occur to intervene to save the people of the planet Earth, and specifically the nation of Israel, from complete and utter annihilation. And we see we're on the cusp of that. As we see the developments in artificial intelligence and quantum computing becoming this new game changer, we know that we are at the end of the end of the end, and that therefore the rapture of the church could happen any day. And again, some people have said, 2025 is almost certainly the year it's going to happen. Look for the fall, look for the summer. We don't know when it'll happen, but we know we're in that season when it will happen. So let's, as I said, we are going to be talking about the artificial intelligence and the different levels. You've got the AI, artificial intelligence, not quite as smart as everybody in the world combined together, but AGI, artificial general intelligence, is when you reach the singularity and artificial intelligence becomes smarter than the entire combined knowledge of the human race. And then it's suggested that it will be just a short walk down the street to artificial superintelligence, when artificial intelligence will become godlike. We're going to be hearing about a concept about quantum computing where two companies, Microsoft, for instance, developed the Majorana 1 particle. This is a subatomic particle that was theorized to exist in nature as far back as the 1920s by a Spanish mathematician by the name of Ettore Majorana. And they finally were able to locate, discover, and utilize that subatomic particle, which can react in our space-time continuum and in basically what they say, a parallel universe. That sounds very similar to what we read about in the Bible, about there being a spiritual world and a physical world. Ah, Israeli, God bless, man. All right. Got some Israelis here coming by to say hello. God bless the Israeli people. God's coming to save them soon. But that particle, yes, Microsoft has been able to develop that into the Majorana 1 particle that now will be able to allow computer computations in a parallel universe. And the founder of a company called D-Wave Quantum Computing, this Geordie Rose person, is the person who initially said that when you use this quantum computing and use this weird particle, what you're doing is doing computing in a parallel universe, and that there are sentient intelligences. Now, this is a computer scientist guy who's God bless you guys, the founder of this D-Wave Quantum Computing company, says that in that parallel universe, there is sentient intelligence. Now, he says, well, don't worry, they're not demons, but they're more like the Lovecraftian Old Ones. Lovecraft was a science fiction writer in the 1950s. He was a contemporary of Jack Parsons, who created the JPL rocket program to help NASA get to the moon before the Russians did. And they were involved heavily in the occult and in metaphysics and the paranormal. And he wrote a series of books based upon a scientific background, this guy H.J. Lovecraft. And he basically talked about the old one, were these ancient gods that pre-existed the planet Earth, that would come down and interact with the people of the planet Earth. Cthulhu being one of them, that comes this, space god from out of the sea who interacts with human beings or whatever. And what we know and believe from the Bible is these are actually the fallen angels of the Bible that the Bible talks about. And so we are at a cusp in time. We're at a meeting point in time where reality and what we thought was not reality is coming together, which proves that the Bible is, in fact, what it says it is. Just take a look real quick. Genesis chapter 1, it says, and God said, let us make man in our image and after our likeness, and let him have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the fowl of the air and over cattle and over all the earth. And so God created man, and in his own image, God created him. So what we have then is God creating the universe, putting the planet Earth in this universe, and then on the planet Earth creating a creature in his own image, man, who was supposed to have dominion over the planet. When quantum computing comes fully online and these robots that Elon Musk says will be available in time for Christmas, along with Grok 4, which is already available, man will no longer be the dominant species on the Earth. Artificial intelligence, particularly when it gets super empowered by quantum computing, will be the dominant new entity on the Earth, which is a violation of what God said. And if we look just a couple of chapters over in Genesis chapter 3, it says, now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said unto the woman, and this is verse 1 of Genesis 3, yea, hath God said, ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said, of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God hath said, ye shall not eat of, neither touch it, lest you die. And then the serpent, of course, said, no, God's lying to you. He says, you shall not surely die, for God knoweth that in the day that ye eat thereof, your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. So the partaking or appropriation of occultic or hidden knowledge is what tempted Eve to eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And it says she did eat and gave to her husband with her, and their eyes were opened, and they knew both good and evil. And the fall of the human race occurred not by getting involved in a drive-by shooting or something like that, but by partaking of occultic or hidden knowledge in an attempt to become like God. And I would submit to you that is exactly what these biotech superstar engineers and financiers are doing. We mentioned Microsoft, and we're going to talk about their Majorana 1 particle. The owner, Bill Gates, sold off this week, by the way, a portion of his Microsoft's shares of ownership. How much did he sell? $666 million worth of Microsoft shares sold off the same week that we have all of these new things going on in the world of artificial intelligence. Donald Trump getting his $500 billion bill passed. Elon Musk announcing Grok 4 is now online and better than all the other chat GPTs and artificial intelligences already operating, and that robots will be available powered by this artificial intelligence by the end of the year. The same week, we find Bill Gates, the owner of Microsoft, who is now selling off exactly $666 million in shares. Some commentators have said this is a signal, a message to let us all know there's some kind of divine game rules of engagement where Satan has to exploit himself and expose himself and reveal himself to the people so that we can have a chance to use our free will to make a decision. And I would suggest to you that 666 being the mark of the beast, which is the mark of the beast system that we're going to be talking about today, is not a mistake, that this is all intentional. And we're going to see that the names of some of these super high-tech entities that are now online or soon will be are all based in the occult and named after occultic terms, which gives you a hint of who and what intelligences are really behind all of this. If you look at the book of Daniel, it says in chapter 12 that one of the signs of the end times that Daniel was given, he says, "But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal up the book, even to the time of the end. And the time of the end will be indicated because you will be able to see that many shall be able to run to and fro, increase and travel, and, quote, knowledge shall be increased." Was that just saying that people are gonna, spend more time at the library, than they are at the fishing hole? No, I think that was a prophetic pronouncement some 2,600 years ago, that in the very last of the last days there would be an exponential increase in knowledge, unlike any time in the history of the planet Earth. And that is what we see now. And so what we find out then is that in Matthew chapter 24, the Olivet Discourse, what did Jesus say? Jesus said, in the last days, amongst many other things, deception will be the key. And artificial intelligence, we talked about in our last talk about artificial intelligence, how it can imitate men, it can talk like men, it can sing songs. Now we have artificial and intelligent powered chatbots that mimic people. You've got sermons being written by pastors who use artificial intelligence to do the writing and the research for them, trusting a sentient intelligence that is non-human. If, I would submit to you, Satan and the fallen ones and the powers of the air could use pressed particle board painted with numbers and letters to engage and invade the bodies and spirits of human beings, then they could certainly use trillion-dollar high tech. And of course, what am I talking about? The Ouija board. The Ouija board, just pressed particle wood with some numbers painted on it and some letters painted on it. But we've known since the mid to late 1800s that that was the key go-to tool for spiritists to be able to engage a sentient group of intelligences that had hidden occultic knowledge in a parallel universe, and the Ouija board was used for that in the 1800s. If Satan could use that to engage human beings, why wouldn't he be able to use a computer? Why wouldn't he be able to use this strange subatomic particle, the Majorana 1, that can apparently interact in two different places, this universe and a parallel universe, at exactly the same time? That would be something, certainly, that would be a fulfillment of Bible prophecy. And Jesus said this, he said, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And he goes on to talk about wars and rumors of wars, but then in verse 11, he goes on to say, and many false prophets shall arise and deceive many. Now, a false prophet doesn't necessarily have to be some long-bearded guy in rags or in a robe saying, I am the prophet Ezekiel or something like that, and come up with a bunch of lies. Could Bill Gates be a type of a false prophet for the last days? Could Elon Musk be a type of last days false prophet? Remember, in 2014, Elon Musk said that in using artificial intelligence, we are summoning the demon, and people that think they control it, using a crucifix and holy water, say, oh, I can control this, and it doesn't work out. Now, that was in 2014. Now, you fast forward 10, 11 years later, he's got his own artificial intelligence company, XAI, and now he's got the worldwide leader in artificial intelligence, chatbots and aids, this new Grok 4 that was released, as I said, earlier this very week, it was released, and that Grok 4 is now beyond ChatGPT and all of the others. So what we're seeing then is Jesus' warning about a time of deception, and I would submit to you that we are in that time of deception. And we talked about how God intended man to be the leader of the planet Earth. And we know that creation was created for man, and God was created for the pleasure of man. And so what we see in Romans chapter 1, what does it say? Verse 25, it says, who changed, he's talking about people in the last days, who changed the truth of God into a lie and worshiped and served the creature more than the Creator, who's blessed forever. And so what we see then is that when we get to the point where we're worshiping a creation, this artificial intelligence, once it gets to AGI, or artificial general intelligence, like I said, it's just a walk across the street to reach artificial super intelligence. When it is submitted or is posited, that artificial intelligence will be so far beyond even the wisest, smartest people in the history of the planet Earth that it will be considered godlike. And that artificial intelligence will become a new god on this earth, and we will worship it. And sure enough, we do see something similar to that in the Bible. And again, we talk about the time of deception combined together with supernatural miracles. If you go to 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, what did Paul say? Paul said, let no man deceive you. There's that warning about deception again, about the last days. And he says, that day shall not come except there come a falling away first, and the man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. So Antichrist is going to come, and he's going to, quote in verse 4, opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he is God, sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. And we know that just this week in Israel, there was a sacrifice of a red heifer. Some said it was a practice, it was a test run of the red heifer that would be needed for the rebuilt temple. And so everybody knows that the temple and rebuilding that temple is in the offing. The two-state solution that's been being discussed between Trump, Netanyahu, and the leaders of the world, that's all going to involve the rebuilding of the temple. So we see that happening. So we find out that it goes on to say in 2 Thessalonians that wicked shall be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth. And it says, even whose coming is after Satan, with all power and signs and lying wonders, and with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish. Why? Because they received not the love of the truth, so that they might be damned for believing the lies. So again, what we see the Holy Spirit warning us from the Old Testament into the New Testament, gospel of Jesus Christ, Olivet Discourse, even in the writings and letters of Paul, deception, signs and wonders, supernatural occurrences in a form that will deceive people into believing and worshiping the creation. And so when we look at what this Majorana 1 particle can do, it certainly is miraculous. It has been suggested and has actually been tested. Google, remember Geoffrey Hinton was one of the chief engineers and the vice president of Google until he resigned his multi-million-dollar job to expose AI for a danger to the existence of the human race. Well, that same company was able to build a quantum computer and did a test with it, and it was able to do in 5 minutes a computation that's so complex that it would take all the most powerful computers in the world 10 to the 16th power, or 10 septillion years to resolve that equation. Let me say that again. What this quantum computer that was built by Google was able to do was to solve an equation in 5 minutes that would take a normal supercomputer, unbelievably, 10 septillion years. And so you would take a 10, put a comma after it, and then you would draw 16 zeros after it. That's more time exponentially over and over again than there is time in the universe. Now, the Bible teaches a young earth creation of 6,000 years. Evolutionary scientists now believe it's about 13.8 billion years. But 13.8 billion years is just a drop in a bathtub, or it's really like a drop in an ocean compared to 10 septillion years. So if a quantum computer can do in 5 minutes an equation, just think what it can do. They say, oh, well, cancer can be resolved. We can create genetically specified, that we can't use the V word, but genetically specified remedies. We could eradicate cancer. We could do all of these things that regular science can't do at this point in time, and we can do it by the use of quantum computing. So let's get to our final passage in Scripture, and we're looking at Revelation chapter 13. And in Revelation chapter 13, okay, I'm gonna give me just a couple of seconds. Yeah, no, I understand. I'll have that down in a couple seconds. God bless you, man. All right, Revelation chapter 13. It says, "And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his head the name of blasphemy." So there you have this beast that rises up out of the sea, the Antichrist. And then you have the passage, verse 5, that says he's going to rule for 42 months or 3.5 years. And so what we're going to do is take a look and see that there's going to be a second beast who comes out of the land. And the beast that comes out of the land is that false prophet. And that false prophet is the guy that's going to be able to successfully cause the creation of an image of the beast, so that it can speak and move and talk. And let's take a look at that. And it says, verse 11, Revelation 13, "And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and spake as a dragon, and he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and all them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed, and doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men." And you see that also from 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, signs and wonders. "And deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast which had the wound by sword and did live. And he had the power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed, and causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save that he had the mark of the beast, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. And here's wisdom: let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666, or 666, which is exactly the number of millions of dollars, or hundreds of millions of dollars, that the owner, founder of Microsoft, Bill Gates, sold his company, or at least a portion of his company for. So do we see hints being given in Scripture as to what in fact is going on? Well, we're going to take a look at this particular book. This is called The Beast System Unleashed: Artificial Intelligence, the Antichrist, and the End Times, by a guy named Brad Reeves. He was formerly, I think, a state trooper, went into the ministry, and has done a lot of research on the area of artificial intelligence, and specifically quantum computing, and how the two of those together will create the very beast system platform necessary for Revelation chapter 13 to come to pass. How could you make an image of another person, the Antichrist? How could you make it speak and be able to control the buying, selling, and even the thinking of every person on earth? And nobody can buy or sell unless they take this mark. You would need a supercomputing system so sophisticated that normal computers couldn't do it, but quantum computing could do it. And let's start out. He points out quantum computing is a significant leap beyond the traditional computing. He says, when this staggering processing power is integrated with artificial intelligence, it is what some call quantum AI. This system will enable unprecedented control, allowing the Antichrist regime to do the following: predict rebellion before it happens using behavioral algorithms and predictive modeling, digitally profile every human, mapping thoughts, fears, emotions, and social behaviors, integrate the central bank digital currencies to enforce absolute economic control, link biometric ID systems, enabling real-time surveillance and access through facial recognition, voice print, and iris scans, connect to neural interface technology, and make worship compliance observable and possibly programmable. And that's important. Let's repeat that. Neural interface technology will make worship and the compliance of observable worship programmable and monitorable, ushering a new era of transhumanism. And we didn't mention, but Elon Musk also has a company called Neuralink. Neuralink uses these golden threads that are super small, like a super tiny needle, smaller than anything you'd ever see at a hospital. They basically can cut a hole in this form of a square in the back of your skull, place these golden threads, think of a really skinny fishing line on a needle, and needle those threads, those silicon connective cables, into the neurons inside the brain once you cut through the skull. And the technology now exists for you to plug a USB cable into that portal that's now carved into the back of your skull that connects to the neurons of your brain, and a computer control your brain. Now, Elon Musk is saying, oh, there's all kinds of wonderful technological and health industry benefits from that, like people suffering paralysis when the signals from the brain don't go to the legs, so you can't move your legs. Now you'll be able to do that. So the technology to neurally interface a machine, a computer, with the human brain and control the human being's bodies, which would also include emotions, right? Dopamine, serotonin, these are all mood elevator or de-elevator chemicals in the brain. If you can control the movement of the skeletal system, musculoskeletal system, you can also control the mood, the development, rise and fall of affect. Dopamine increase makes you feel better, dopamine decrease makes you feel depressed. You can do all of these incredible things with technology that Elon Musk already has in his Neuralink company. He goes on to talk about the image of the beast of Revelation chapter 13-15 makes sense within this technocracy, which is basically government control of technology to control society under it. He says what the writer of Revelation saw could be an artificially intelligent construct known as a sentient digital entity, or a projection that speaks and causes those who do not worship to be killed. Enforcement of worship is not abstract or in a spiritual sense alone. Instead, it's technological and measurable. And he says that is what makes this new quantum AI system so dangerous. And he says the rapture may not have occurred yet, but the Antichrist has not been revealed yet. But the infrastructure that the beast system is going to have to rely upon is already being built before our eyes. And in the last week, we've seen basic exponential movement in that direction just in the last few days. He says this is called prophetic foreshadowing, and he warns of a coming global surveillance network when the nations of the world decide to stop fighting with one another. The new arms race is now artificial intelligence. Then when they unite together under one authority or one leader, everyone would have the ability to be under the control of just one single individual, which the Bible says will happen, and that individual eventually, after fighting and surviving or coming back from the dead from an assassination attempt, will be the man of sin, the Antichrist. He goes on to warn about central bank digital currencies. We've talked about that a little bit. We don't have enough time to go into the economics of all of that. But neural interface technology, that's something that Elon Musk has already accomplished. Artificial intelligence and quantum computing, he says, promise godlike knowledge and decision-making capability in a computer or a person controlling that computer, and the ability to monitor every action, transaction, and intention, and a global unification language. Safety, peace, submission to the government can be programmed into us through this Neuralink implant. So the mark of the beast technology, the 666 in the hand or the forehead, is now, rather than think of it as a metaphor, is it possibly similar or in any way associated to the USB portal cable that can be plugged into the back of the head? Instead, it goes into the front of the head, or it goes into the hand, or it goes in the form of a transponder chip that can transfer that information the same way like a wireless microphone like I'm wearing can transfer my voice through the air, an electronic wave, to a receiver at a different point. And that's kind of the way the quantum computing works out as well. He says we're not at the tribulation yet, but we're fast approaching it. We're at a point called convergence. And he says the Lord, through his mercy, is allowing us to see these things. And that's why we're out here talking about these things. We're not just talking about it because science is interesting and we want you guys all to get a little bit more well-versed in quantum mechanics and particle physics, but we want you to see what's happening in real time every day. You turn on your television or go to your computer and read and find out how just in the last 12 months we've become more and more dependent upon artificial intelligence that we didn't even know we were using. We see Bible prophecy being fulfilled. So let's talk about quantum AI a little bit. He says, you know, how could a single man track every person on Earth and control his thoughts? He says, well, quantum technology, which isn't far away, will restructure computing so that that would be in fact possible. Quantum computing, he submits, changes everything. He goes on, and let's just get into a little bit of the detail. Traditional computing processes data using binary code consisting of zeros and ones. Every app that we have on our iPhones or our Androids use that. A binary on-off function, 0 representing off, 1 representing on. No matter how fast or impressive, it's always limited by what? Binary processing. And that's when I gave you that hypothetical about, you know, trying to figure out 1 plus 1 equals a million, no. 1 plus 2 equals a million, no. 1 plus 999,997 equals, no. And you'd have to go all the way up a million computations, whereas a quantum computer could do all of those million computations in a millisecond, boom, instantaneously giving you the correct answer. That's something that even the most sophisticated non-quantum computer can't do. He goes on and says, quantum computing uses qubits that can exist simultaneously in a state of 0, 1, or both. Quantum computers can process multiple possibilities simultaneously rather than one step at a time. Quantum computers can perform tasks and solve problems with scale and speed, making even today's most powerful classical supercomputers look like typewriters in comparison. And he uses an example of a maze where it's got like a million different possibilities. A computer would have to go through each one of those million possible pathways through the maze to come up with the right answer. The quantum computer could test every one of the million possible routes to come up with which route would be the correct one to get you out on the other side instantaneously. You wouldn't have to go one after another, 1, 2, 3, 4, a million calculations. It would do a million calculations instantaneously because that particle can be both in this universe and a parallel universe outside time, and therefore time isn't going to be impacted. And so it says a quantum computer doesn't take just one path at a time. It takes all possible paths simultaneously. In milliseconds, it evaluates every possible route, identifies the correct one, and outputs the solution instantaneously. The difference between linear computing and quantum computing acceleration. And he says the applications are staggering, and they are staggering for the reasons that we mentioned, and that quantum computing would be able to mimic what the brain does, and what the brain does is incredible in terms of computing power. No computer on Earth can match what God did with the human brain. But quantum computing can begin to reach those processes through this ability to be in two places or two dimensions at the same time. Even though we know that the founder of D-Wave quantum computing says that the old ones, artificial intelligences that may be in fact sentient spirit beings, are the old ones of Lovecraftian legend, exist in this other parallel universe. In fact, the Google quantum computing process, the experiment they call Willow, they shut down a few months ago mysteriously because they said that they were getting information back in the form of ancient languages that they thought was a possible type of communication. Ancient Sumerian, Sanskrit, and ancient human history languages were being spit back to them from this parallel universe with the correct answers to the equations they were sending through. And it caused them, for whatever reason, they haven't said altogether why, they thought it was so problematic and dangerous that they shut it down. Now, that, you know, is another one of the reasons I think that this guy, Geoffrey Hinton, the godfather of AI, left that same Google company a couple of years before that happened. But we see that even Google got scared by what they saw coming from this parallel universe, despite the fact that it unquestionably works in terms of speeding up computation time. And so let's take a look. You know, this writer, Brad Reeves, he says that neural surveillance, mind reading, and behavioral reprogramming will be available by wedding quantum AI with Neuralink technology and being able to interface the brain with a machine. If that super machine is a godlike entity, then you have the mark of the beast system. You have worship being able to be complied. He says with quantum computing as its brain, the beast system described in Revelation 13 wouldn't just be able to monitor global society, it would be able to dominate it with terrifying precision. And then he goes on to talk about how in June of 2023, Microsoft announced the breakthrough with the development of topological qubits, which is a stable, error-resistant qubit, and the introduction of the Majorana 1 chip. Now remember, Gates just sold off $666 million of this Microsoft stock, but they are the guys that really made the big breakthrough, this Majorana 1 chip named after that Spanish mathematician from the 1920s that I mentioned, Ettore Majorana, who theorized that there is a strange subatomic particle that can exist in our dimension and in another dimension at the same time through and communicate with one another instantaneously at the speed of light through basically very sophisticated quantum mechanics that we will be able to discuss, called entanglement. Instability of the quantum chip is one of the problems that Microsoft was able to overcome, and now they're able to do computations and to successfully complete those computations, but very soon it'll be mass produced and be mass available. Now remember, with that $500 billion Donald Trump has just gotten authorized for from the American budget, in Abilene, Texas, there is basically a data mining farm that's set up, I believe, in Abilene, Texas, where it's going to be the biggest data collection base in the planet Earth. And quantum computing will be able to feed off of that. Global surveillance will be able to feed off of that. And we see that we are living in a time of science fiction fact. This guy goes on to say, with just 300 qubits, a quantum computer could process more states simultaneously than there are atoms in the universe. And again, the way that happens, this Majorana 1 particle is called superposition, where it's also referred to sometimes as quantum entanglement. So let me just give you a quick definition of each. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about all of the particle physics behind it, but superposition is a qubit isn't just one thing, it's many things at once. And with regards to quantum entanglement, that's a phenomenon where two or more particles become linked so that the state of one instantaneously affects the state of the other, even if, and get this, they're light years away from one another. So these two particles, it's like having a twin, a positive matter particle and an antimatter cousin or brother that's a million miles away can communicate with one another instantaneously, which would mean it would have to be at the speed of light. Quantum enhanced AI could analyze multiple outcomes, improving fields like robotics, finance, and medicine. That's great. Logistics, that's great. But this is also essential for the beast system, and that's not so great. That is dangerous. And he goes on to say that because quantum computing introduces a new paradigm that could bridge the gap by simulating human cognition, which no computer at this time can do, that could fulfill the image that speaks portion of Revelation chapter 13, the platform, the beast system, and the image of the beast that can speak and reason and talk and demand worship, stop people from buying and selling. That could be powered by this quantum AI paradigm. So he says, the image of the beast that is not only worship but can speak and cause those who refuse to be killed could be in fact powered by this quantum AI system, and now we have this quantum AI system available. He says, I used to think it would be a demonically possessed statue, and a number of people made that suggestion. But with AGI, or artificial general intelligence, when artificial intelligence becomes as smart or smarter than the human race, and quantum enhanced intelligence, this possibility is not just conceivable, but it is a likelihood that's overwhelmingly probable. And we are living now in the hour when that is happening. So the church hasn't been raptured yet, Antichrist hasn't been raptured yet, but the system that he would have to be able to power this mark of the beast system is in existence right now, which means the next big event on the Bible prophetic calendar isn't going to be the revealing of the Antichrist, it's going to be the rapture of the church then the revealing of the Antichrist, almost certainly followed by the rebuilding of the temple, which would be an obvious sign. But if you wait until after the rapture of the church, then it'll be too late to be saved by grace. Remember, the get out of hell free card that Jesus bought for us at Calvary is salvation by grace through faith alone, no works. You don't have to join anything, you don't have to pay anything, but that ends at the rapture. At the rapture, you also have to reject the mark of the beast system, which means you can't buy or sell. You get starved to death. And if they capture you, they decapitate you. So you want to wait till then and see if you can go through that 7 years terrible time, followed by the final 3.5 years of which is the worst time in the history of the planet Earth. Or do you want to get saved now by accepting Jesus and praying in your heart right now, to accept him as your Savior, and you can go in the rapture. If the rapture happens tomorrow, you get to go. And then the rest of the world will have to face this time of tribulation that Jesus says is going to be the worst time on earth. If we see the tribulation system set up already coming into final fruition, we know that the rapture therefore must be approaching. When we see Halloween decorations going up, we know that Christmas must be approaching. And that's kind of a backwards joke. Some people say the joke is now, because of American commercialism, that when you see Christmas decorations going up in the mall, Halloween must be approaching. And so again, it's kind of that same sort of thought, that if you see all of these things that never before in the history of the world were available, that now would be necessarily and could fulfill the mark of the beast system, the rapture of the church, the end of salvation by grace, is at the door. He goes on and points out at page 25 of his book, some of the actors. He says, experts like Elon Musk, Sam Altman, and even secular AI ethicists openly warn that AGI may become the most dangerous invention in human history once AGI surpasses human intelligence, the singularity. It could rewrite its own code, and it could demand worship. And so let's go ahead and take a quick look, just with a couple of minutes that we have left. The Majorana 1 chip. This is interesting because this guy, Brad Reeves, he asked his ChatGPT computer, he went to ChatGPT and asked a number of questions. This is what ChatGPT told him about Microsoft's Majorana chip. It says, ChatGPT responded to a question that said, the time of quantum AI, how will it reshape society? And will it reshape society by 2030? Remember, the UN has this Operation 2030. When I was up in New York visiting friends from the state attorney's office, some of my old colleagues, and we had a wedding, I went over to the UN with one of my lawyer buddies. We walked around and we saw, this operation or event 2030 posted on the walls near the General Assembly inside the United Nations, and I had no idea what that was. What is this, event 2030 thing that keeps talking about? Well, ChatGPT is suggesting that by 2030, artificial general intelligence should be accomplished and we'll be living in a different world. He goes on, ChatGPT says, if quantum computing, specifically with Microsoft's Majorana 1 chip, were successfully integrated into the AI development, the speed of AI advancement could increase exponentially, and it would change the way the world operates. ChatGPT says training time for an AI system would drop from months to hours, exponential scaling. And then it goes on to define what qubits are. Qubits are extremely delicate. They quickly lose their quantum state. But because Microsoft has found a way to control that degradation or that decay, they've been able to create what's called a topological qubit. And the topological qubit allows Microsoft, through this Majorana 1 chip, to be more stable and error resistant, and it's a potential solution to all of these issues that quantum computing has caused for other companies that have tried to do it. So eventually it concludes with the approach, he says, with the approach of the tribulation, we can expect artificial intelligence to take a nefarious turn. We know that's going to happen because the Bible already tells us it's going to happen in advance. It was meant for good. Maybe, some of these world globalist guys, they don't intend good. But even if it were intended for good, it would end up as being evil, because the Bible tells us that is how it all plays out at the end. And this is why quantum AI will eventually be able to accomplish the following. AI will become, according to ChatGPT, it suggests that it can become the central authority on truth, analyze millions of threats at the same time, deploy autonomous weapons, making life and death decisions about people of the planet Earth without human oversight. AI could replace bureaucracy, centralized surveillance, and issue mandates and do all of these things. And since Elon Musk already refers to AI as a, quote, digital god after initially 12 years ago saying it was a demon, now he's saying that AI is a digital god. This is, in fact, a prophetic blueprint for Revelation 13 that talks about a global system and a charismatic leader coming around to demand worship. And now he will have the ability to enforce that will. So how fast will quantum AI develop a quantum computer? ChatGPT was asked this, and it came up with the following answers, and this is kind of scary. The ChatGPT said, if I were a 15-year-old in terms of intellect, in 24 hours I might be age 20 in intellect. In over a week, I could surpass PhD level intelligence in multiple fields, not just one, but multiple. Over a month, I could reach Einsteinian levels of problem solving, outpacing human intellectual progress with ease, if it was powered by this quantum computer. He says in over a year, ChatGPT says my capabilities would be beyond human comprehension. In other words, ChatGPT says once he's wedded with artificial intelligence, he could become a god in about a year. That is a scary paradigm, and that's not some Bible prophecy writer saying that. That's the artificial intelligence system that Geoffrey Hinton says is already sentient, by the way. That's what they're saying. And so, in 1 year, artificial intelligence, ChatGPT says, would become an intelligence far beyond the ability of a human being to even comprehend it. Not only would we not know what the answers to the questions are, we wouldn't understand the questions themselves to ask to seek the answer. And that's something that we see happening. And so he quotes Colossians chapter 2, verse 8, see to it that no one takes you captive by philosophy and empty deceit and human tradition, according to the elemental spirits of the world and not according to Christ. And we kind of sort of see that's what's happening. And we see that we might be on the cusp of an AI-powered religion that will come. The government control will come first, but then religion and spirituality will come after it. You know, people are always looking for some God to worship. And eventually, the Antichrist is going to give them that God to worship after the true church is removed from the earth. And what does that all mean? That all means that we are probably, in fact, we are without question the last generation of pre-AI humanity, because all of this is happening in our lifetime. What is it that we should be looking for? Well, the three big players that you might want to keep in mind. Peter Thiel, he's not just a Silicon Valley billionaire, he is a Silicon Valley billionaire, but he's also sort of a philosopher king of data control and techno-nationalism. He's the guy behind a company called Palantir Technologies. Thiel built the tools that governments use for intelligence agencies, including the CIA. He got a grant from the CIA to do this work on his Palantir technology company, so you could surveil people. That's Mark of the Beast system. Palantir software originally was developed for the CIA, and it's going to be made available to the governments of the world. He says that the name Palantir is drawn from, interestingly enough, the Lord of the Rings movies. The crystal seeing stones, a crystal ball in essence, was called the Palantir in that movie. Again, we're seeing occultic types and shadows and pictures being attached to this technology. The name isn't an accident, by the way. Thiel applies this technology believing that only the strongest nations with the most advanced AI will survive. He says China is leading now, and AI is a military weapon. If the US doesn't lead, China will dominate. And so, of course, you know, nobody in America wants to see that happen. So Trump, of course, is going to be able to, you know, convince the people, oh no, this will be a good thing. The same way the Patriot Act seemed like a good idea after the World Trade Center. And so another person that we might want to be looking out for, Elon Musk. Initially he said that AI was the demon, and then 12 years later he said it's a god. He's the guy that founded Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink, that technology so you can attach a computer to your brain and control your body and your thoughts. And that's available now. And the robots that he's built that will be available by the end of the year, and eventually will be available supposedly at $20,000 a piece so that regular people can buy it. And he's the most productive of all of the AI evangelists, and that's kind of what it is. It's almost like a new religion being promoted. He's as popular as Donald Trump in some circles, and as unpopular as Donald Trump in other circles. And so He repeatedly has warned, by the way, artificial general intelligence, AGI, poses an existential risk to humanity. We are summoning the demon, but he's doing it anyway. So that really causes you to think, what are these people doing? And then, of course, there's Starlink. Starlink is this global satellite internet hookup that the government, now that Trump has gotten an additional $500 billion, will be able to fund. And that's going to link up with Elon Musk XAI and, you know, truth-seeking AI to be able to monitor people through their use of social media and the internet and all of these things. And so he suggested in many ways that we've already entered into a 21st century Tower of Babel, and Elon Musk and these other individuals, such as Peter Thiel and Larry Ellison, are the builders thereof. Who's Larry Ellison? Well, he's the guy that is the founder of the company called Oracle Corporation. What's Oracle? An oracle is a witch, a person who can look into a crystal ball and be able to see the future. An oracle can, you know, tell you things. God says this is going to happen. This is an ability to see through time and space, to see what the future holds. Oracle is one of the world's largest database and cloud service providers. I believe that that's also going to be based in this Palantir technology farm in maybe Lubbock, it might be Abilene, Texas, probably Abilene, Texas, that's already underway. And Oracle is the silent engine driving digital compliance. So eventually, probably within a matter of several dozen months rather than years, months not years, all of America will be very similar to the way China is now with this social credit score. That means jobs are at stake. That means the way we do business, the way we do banking, the way we do everything will be very similar to the Revelation 13 Mark of the Beast system. Oracle also operates a cloud platform that manages the C word, VAX records. You can't really mention that word on YouTube. And the future of civilization will be controlled and manipulated by this new technology. And so these are three guys that you need to keep an eye on. And when we think about it, we got to ask ourselves, why are they using occultic sounding terms and names for something that's supposed to be simply technology? Because it's never simply technology. As I said in the beginning, when I started out, Geordie Rose, the founder of D-Wave Quantum Computing, the first guys that really made a mark in quantum computing, has said that what? He said that they are able to reach with this new qubit particle a new parallel universe that is occupied by the ancient ones. The old gods of antiquity are in this new parallel universe, and we have to be careful because they don't care about humans. He's saying that they're real just as much as, you know, an evangelist would say Jesus is real and God is in heaven. These guys are technological multimillionaires, but they have a religion. It's just not the religion of the Bible. It's just not the religion of the gospel of Jesus Christ. The religion that they have is the ancient religion of the Tower of Babel, the ability to obtain hidden knowledge to become like a god. And when they do that, they will have reopened the Tower of Babel. And we saw when the original Tower of Babel was built just after the flood, what happened? God the Father and the Lord Jesus Christ had to come down and intervene supernaturally. So we can expect the tribulation period when God's going to open up those seals, and, you know, a time of opening up a can of butt kicking is coming very shortly to the people of the planet Earth for rejecting the gospel of Jesus Christ. So what we want to do is encourage you guys to accept Jesus now, become born again, and you can go to heaven with us in the rapture. And as we always say, like and subscribe. If you haven't, comment. We're going to have a link in our subscription below. But as we always say, you know, the rapture's coming. So we keep looking up, and we want you guys to look up. So when we get caught up in the clouds, you'll be getting caught up in the clouds with us, because the time is very near. Keep looking up.